to talk about?
I want to hop on that trans conversation.
Sure. What do you want to say about it?
Uh, yeah. So, just quick question: what do you guys think is more important, age or gender?
Mm,
As
ooh.
far as classification.
I think it depends on the context. I mean, there are certain instances where age would be far more important than gender. And then I think that there would be other contexts where gender would be more important than age.
Okay. How about just along the lines of identification?
Both.
What would be more important?
It depends on the action.
Okay. Can a 40-year-old man be an 8-year-old girl?
No,
Why not?
because
If that's how he identifies as a trans.
because they've been around the rhythm of the orbit of the Earth 40 times.
But mentally developed. Let's just say they identify as an 8-year-old.
Wait, you're saying like mentally they developed
Just
effectively as
as
an
much
8-year-old?
as much
Yeah,
as
I mean
much
they
scientific
would just be
evidence.
mentally deficient, and we would probably help them in whatever way we
Okay.
see
So
fit.
you would advocate this person not identify as an 8-year-old.
No, I just think that I would go with whatever the medical efficacy is. I myself am not a psychologist. It sounds to me like some sort of a mental situation there, and I'm sure it might be quite disheartening, and so it could be a medical condition that requires professional help.
And do you think transgender falls along the same lines?
No.
Why?
Well, because I think that in order to be a mental disorder, what is required is that there basically has to be a level of mental distress. And so the DSM-5 had initially had, well, it was the DSM-4 that had labeled
DSM-4,
it
correct?
as gender identity disorder. But as studies had continued coming out for regarding trans people, what they instead found out is that there were, in fact, trans people that were perfectly happy with being trans and didn't actually have gender dysphoria. And so that is why they created the delineation, changing the term gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria, because they needed to separate the idea of the negative feeling associated with being trans than being trans in and of itself. It is possible for a trans person to say feel gender euphoria and no gender dysphoria, which would not qualify under a DSM classification of a medical disorder, of a mental disorder.
I'm here. Let me just digest that. Hello.
Yep.
Okay. I said I'm taking all that on board.
Uh,
And so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
well, I was giving you a moment.
Yeah, I need a moment.
Take your time. I'm playing a game, so
Mm-hmm.
as much time as you need.
I just don't. I don't want to. I want to have meaning behind what I say. Thank you. So a big problem, what I see with the transgender community, apart from obviously enriching pharma, is that it seems very location specific. A lot of people raising 3 or 4 transgender children, whereas if they weren't indoctrinated, they would have probably just lived normal lives instead of being lifelong medical victims. And that's where I see the problem with this whole quote unquote movement it's horribly cruel and dehumanizing to these kids, especially the children. Once you're past 18, if you want to live with that, whatever you want to, that disorder or whatever you call your illness, that's fine. But the problem is when you start making this credible towards kids, because I'm sure all these big pharmaceutical companies will gladly agree that this is a medical condition and that they need this gender affirming care, because these kids will be lifelong medical victims. That's why I don't.
So I
think
just
it's
want
that
to be clear,
genuine.
right? The reason why you're
Yeah.
against it, or one of the reasons, is that transness enriches pharma.
And it's hokey pokey, and it's if you weren't indoctrinated by it, you wouldn't be transgender. Whereas if it was a genuine illness
You
or a
feel that when
condition,
people are trans, that they're indoctrinated to being trans?
100%, absolutely, especially children.
Did you observe the studies that I provided that showed the morphological differences in the brain for being trans? Trans people that specifically 97% show morphological changes in the brain when they self-identify as trans.
Okay.
So do you think that you can socially change your prefrontal cortex, or I'm sorry, not the prefrontal? Do you feel that you can change the?
Well, can I stop you for a second? What are the study you just mentioned where it changed the morphological activity
Yep.
in the brain?
Yes.
So how did they conduct that study? Like what's
Yeah,
the context?
it specifically what they did is that they asked people whether or not that they were trans, and then they
Mhm.
measured the subcortical volumes of the brain in a mega
Okay.
analytic study, and then they found that overwhelmingly trans individuals possess their own unique brain phenotype. If you feel that, do you think that
That doesn't make it
that an
real, right?
indoctrination
Mhm.
causes the subcortical volumes of your brain to physically change?
I would exactly the same way that if you showed a child pornography or something that would have
Yeah,
effect the same kind of
showing
effect.
you pornography or gay pornography or trans ideology or trans agenda does not change the subcortical volume of your brain.
But so I mean,
The
is
subcortical
that
volume of the
subcortical
brain
volume just
is
stimulation?
maintained as early as into birth, right? And then the brain continues to grow as you age, and then it maintains that shape. We analyze the subcortical volumes of the brain, and we find it's different among transgender individuals than it is among cisgendered counterparts. Both trans men and trans women exhibited these morphological changes.
But again, that doesn't make you the opposite sex. And if you did that,
Why?
if you told a child, hold on, if you
No,
told
no,
a child that
I
he
never
was a
said
dog,
anything regarding
and you ran the same
opposing
study and asked him
sex.
if he was a dog,
I never said
doesn't make it
anything.
so.
I never said anything opposing sex. What I am telling you is that the basis of it has a basis in biological determinism. It is not socially conditioned. You can't socially condition yourself into changing the subcortical volumes of your brain, just the same way that you cannot socially condition yourself to having an X amount of testosterone to a Y amount of estrogen. You cannot. That has everything to do with genetics and has nothing to do with, I don't know, whatever is shown to you on TV or whatever your parents say.
So why has there been a massive epidemic of trans children? Why has it just recently become such a phenomenon that we're seeing?
I would even venture to
Is it
say,
just has
I
there
would
been
venture to
massive
say
changes
that there
in-
is an
in
X
biology?
amount of people where they are looking at social media and feel like that they could be trans. This is why I think I follow the WPATH standards to ensuring that they get a psychological evaluation to ensure whether or not that they do truly have are actually trans, and it's not just a phase. I think it's incredibly dangerous to be providing unnecessary medical care.
This is kind of the studies that
And
remind
the
me
other
when
problem
free
that I'm
refugees
having,
run their
this
own
only
studies.
works if you listen.
So I apologize. Yep.
The other problem that you're having is you made a claim earlier that this ultimately just helps the pharmaceutical industry. Are you aware how much Pfizer made, say, in 2022?
I could, like, in terms of percentage or from the previous year.
Just like
just
amount of
overall?
money.
I'd say probably 90 to 120 billion.
That's about correct. Yes, they made over $100 billion in 2022, and it was actually mostly from COVID-19 vaccines. How much do you think of that was trans-related prescriptions? 0.5%. Not even that. It is considered economically insignificant. In fact, it is so insignificant, it doesn't even show on the balance sheet. So I just want to point out, right, that you made the argument that, well, you know, transness, what it does is that it enriches pharma. Pharma has plenty of ways to, quote unquote, enrich itself. And it doesn't need transness for that to be the case. Studies regarding endocrinological findings that cause someone to have a difference in their internal, how they feel, and it changes their behavior depending on what kind of hormone they receive, is independent as to whether or not pharma can make money off of it.
Well, I mean, I'm sure pharma gets their share, but there's also systemic profitable making schemes just outside of pharmaceuticals.
Okay, but all I'm providing is a pushback that transness enriches pharma. That at best is simplistic and very misleading. Because the reality is that pharma can enrich itself in all sorts of different ways. And just so you're aware, the drugs that are typically given regarding trans-affirming therapy is already induced currently regarding non-trans care. Testosterone is widely prescribed to cis men for hypogonadism. Estrogen is prescribed to women for birth control and menopause. Puberty blockers are developed decades ago to deal with precocious puberty. Right? That trans youth is the tiniest fraction of that usage. It's literally non-existent.
For now, right? Because there's only, you know, as the experimentations go on, there's gonna be more and more people identifying, and they're gonna want to go through the transitions and get the medications, all that stuff. But there's a reason why some of the Scandinavian countries have completely just abandoned this issue, right?
The Scandinavians, if I'm not mistaken, did not abandon this issue, but I am aware that there has been a large push in the UK in favor of right-wing arguments, and as a result, they have pushed back against what they have called the quote-unquote trans ideology. But there are numerous different medical journals that have not been influenced by right-wing extremism that continue to observe these findings. It's not just the United States.
Do you think this is more of a political issue or a scientific issue?
I think regarding the trans issue, I think that there is the initial medical basis behind it, and it can be empirically verified, given the fact that I've even provided the study regarding the subcortical volumes of the brain, as well as I can also provide endocrinological findings and embryological findings. All of those things can be empirically verified, and I think that the right has decided to politicize it in order to scare parents in order to get votes. Yes, it has become politicized.
Do you think you would find these same findings? Do you think you would find these same findings in children throughout the world, or is it just in the West?
It also exists throughout the world. You should look up what a hydra is. Do you know what a hydra is?
A hydra? Sounds like a mythological...
Nope. They are basically the Indian form of trans people. And they've existed for thousands of years. There have also been numerous cultures that have existed that have exhibited a quote-unquote third gender. So whether or not that it has become in vogue since, say, 2015 is independent as to the actual discoveries regarding the endocrinological findings, the neurobiological findings, and the neuronal findings.
Are those same communities doing the circumcision and mutilation on their children, or is it just here in the West?
Circumcision?
on females, or excuse me, castrations.
What does that have to do with trans people?
I mean, that's part of the identification, correct?
Circumcision is not a part of trans identification.
I meant to say castrations.
Castration of what are you castrating? Balls?
Yes, removal of.
Hydras don't necessarily remove their balls.
I know, but to get the same, if the Hydra quote unquote community is exemplifying the same attributes as the trans community in the West, wouldn't they have started to go through those procedures where they're castrating themselves, getting the surgeries, getting the hormones, etc.?
You should be aware that trans individuals do not necessarily remove their gonads. In fact, that's a very stunning minority. I can provide you that.
But at the end of the day, that's where that's where we see this ultimately play out, right?
No,
that's something they want to pursue.
No, most trans people don't remove their gonads.
Well, I'm sure they would if they had the chance. It's just
no, not necessarily. That is a very, very personal decision to make. One thing to mention is the complications that occur, the cost, the difficulty that people have to deal with. There's all sorts of factors to consider when considering bottom surgery. And for a lot of people, it's too much, or they don't consider that to be necessary. They're okay with their identity and they keep their gonads. Most trans people are okay with this.
But would you see something like that as compassionate? Is that something we should help?
I think if an individual wants to have bottom surgery and they have the money, it's your body. You do with it as you see fit.
And I agree, after 18 years old, I completely agree with that. But the problem is when we're
there's zero instance. Then we are in perfect agreement because the WPATH standards do not recommend bottom surgery for minors. It just doesn't exist.
There have been cases of children getting bottom surgery.
I've never heard of that.
So much so that TLC ran a show on a kid.
Hold on.
The kid's name was Jazz.
Hold on. Okay, let me take a look here.
This is an awesome show, by the way.
Where are you getting this information?
Way,
so I'm looking at the WPATH standards, and Endocrine Society is saying bottom surgery is only considered for adults 18 plus, and that there have been very, very rare exceptions where it may be in older adolescents, typically 16 or 17, but only after extensive psychological evaluation, years of gender dysphoria, family and medical support, and consistent use of hormones. That exception is extremely rare and typically require multiple independent medical professionals to sign off. So it is apparent that there is no credible evidence prepubescent children receiving genital surgery for gender transition.
I just want to clarify, that was kind of got too specific, but just overall gender affirming surgeries.
Okay, so bottom surgery is off the table. We're free in saying that the bottom surgery thing, that's not a thing for children.
There has been a couple instances of this happening, yes.
Very, 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 very rare, right? Like we're talking a handful, right? Out of 300 million people in the United States. It's not even, it's basically a non-existent scenario. And also by the WPATH standards, it does recommend 18 plus. That's by the WPATH standards. So adolescents between 12 to 16, they can get puberty blockers, which are reversible. As an older teen,
the evidence on that is scant.
Wrong. That is wrong.
They found the evidence they came across in the Scandinavian countries for women, especially, have identified bone weakness, hormone or pituitary, and
I'm aware of the bone density loss as well as a potential in a loss of fertility. That I'm aware of. That, in my opinion, I believe that is a decision that ought be up to the parent and the psychologist to come to a conclusion as to whether or not that they go through with that. I don't believe that should be up to a politician. I just think that like individuals, it's going to be different for different individuals. And but these things, the first one can be mitigated with a calcium supplement, and the second one goes away after a few years. So it's really a non-issue. The point is that I'm trying to represent to you is that it is reversible, and it is. So for older teens, they can start hormone therapy such as estrogen and testosterone, which are based on very, very strict guidelines. You should be aware that the WPATH standards for hormone therapy are heavily controlled for minors, and it is already quite conservative in its position, and it does require sign-off of both a doctor as well as a psychologist to determine whether or not that you're even suited for that. Regarding surgery, that is typically only considered for legal adults. The only instances of surgery that has been recommended has been mastectomies, but mastectomies have been recommended to children for decades now. It's really not new. There are, for example, pubescent girls that grow too large breasts and require mastectomies. It is also the case that there are boys that have gynecomastia that require mastectomies. So it's that's the only reason why that's legal.
Right, but I just want to kind of push back on the hormone therapy being reversible, like completely reversible. That's
no, specifically puberty blockers, not the estrogen, testosterone, puberty blockers, and that's not disproven.
okay, we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that. I've seen evidence both ways, but it's not as cut and dry as you make it out to be. But do you think? And I think I don't want to cut your. There's another gentleman here. I think he wanted to ask a question.
It's
Oh, no,
between
I
you.
just wanted to make like a
Yep, go ahead.
like a small thing. No, it's irrelevant. It's fine. You guys moved on from that.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So the problem is that the puberty blockers pause the development of secondary sex characteristics. The idea of reversibility is referring to the physical effects. Once the blockers are stopped, puberty generally resumes. That particular aspect is very well documented in the use of blockers for precocious puberty for decades. Okay, it is true that I agree with you that there is bone density loss. Or loss. I believe that there are side effects that exist with just about any drug that you take, from aspirin to whatever. And I just think that is a decision that ought to be made by the parent and the doctor. That's what I think.
Okay, and I kind of want to tie this back into a larger point where this is an endemic issue. Like, it's a local phenomenon here in California where I live. I'm a father, have a 2-year-old daughter and one on the way. It's illegal for the teachers to tell the parents about their children's sexual behavior.
Okay. I'm in a perfect agreement to that.
Like, this is where I feel that this is not an issue of compassion or allowing children to, be themselves or something. Like, it's much more nefarious. There's much deeper intentions at play here.
Okay.
Do you agree with that?
No.
Okay, so why do you think that law would exist in California?
Well, because I think that there are people that are staunchly anti-trans, especially the religious community, that would go out of their way to be quite abusive to their children under the basis that they are trans, to try to make them not trans. These types of conversion therapies, as well as being hateful toward them simply for being trans, it does not result in better outcomes for the child. And it makes sense that the child has someone safe to talk to, say at the school, that if the school finds out that the child is trans, and if the parents are just like these heavy, hardcore Christians, it would behoove the school to not tell the parents for the risk of the safety of the child.
Do you think children should, like, what's your minimum age for children being allowed to start transition?
I believe that I follow WPATH standards. I've already explained how this works. I don't know what exactly you're kind of looking for here at this point.
I'm just asking, like,
well, 12 to 16 for puberty blockers, and that's with parent as well as a doctor's consent. And in certain case scenarios, 16, this is again parent, doctor consent, psychologist too, that they have to show that they possess the necessity of going on hormone replacement therapy, and then they can proceed with that. And then by the time that they're 18, they can get surgery. Yep.
So, and I think you mentioned earlier, but just refresh, you are against children getting bottom surgery, sexual reassignment surgery?
I am not in favor. Well, this is by the WPATH standards. It's not even my own standards, and I agree with the WPATH standards.
And you do know that several countries have just completely rejected WPATH evidence and their studies on.
Yes, there's a lot of right-wing extremism, and it is pervasive in many different parts.
Norway.
What?
The countries themselves, Sweden, UK, Finland, Norway, have rejected their studies. And I wouldn't call any of those countries right wing.
Okay, so let me take a look and see. I mean, considering like that you have like a minority of countries that are saying that you're seeing a minority of countries going against it, therefore the WPATH standards are incorrect, but completely ignore the Australian standards or the world standards. You seem to just lean onto that one study from Sweden.
No, I'm just trying to basically just say there's, the evidence isn't so cut and dry as the community makes it out to be. And offering kids.
Also, just FYI, Sweden hasn't banned puberty blockers or hormones.
Their evidence, they don't base their evidence off the WPATH, their studies.
Fair enough, but they haven't banned puberty blockers or hormones.
They've recently just limited it to very strict settings.
Okay.
But
have you seen the WPATH standards? Have you ever looked that up?
No, but I've heard. I mean, I don't need studies to.
You really should take a look at it. It is highly clinical.
Okay, but have you seen the tobacco company studies on cigarettes?
Yes.
You know what I mean? So,
but you're going to tell me that this is funded, that the WPATH standards is funded by what? What are they funded by?
I have no idea where their funding comes from.
They're not funded by big pharma, I guess.
But these claims that you're making that it's,
take a look at this, right? This is the paper for the standards of care of the health of transgender and gender diverse people. This is version 8, right? Take a look at the amount of people that are actually in the study itself. What exactly is happening here, right? The studies that have been provided by Sweden and re-looking at it And I believe that there has been a wave of right-wing extremism that is cast doubt into these things. But there's numerous empirical research that is able to show this existence. And I think it is only a matter of time before you realize that this isn't bullshit. I mean, you're not going to sit here and show me, this 248-page standards list that features hundreds and hundreds of doctors throughout the world who study specifically this particular thing, that they're all wrong. It just doesn't make any sense.
But there's equal amounts of doctors who disagree.
No, there's not.
Really?
Correct. There's not an
so
equal amount of doctors that disagree.
Okay. I mean, that's astonishing. I think that I mean, like, even the way you're speaking about, like, any opposition to transgenderism is only because of right-wing extremists.
Yes.
And not medical. Oh,
No,
is that
I think so.
has to do
Yes.
with medical?
Well,
Oh,
I
that's
mean, I
medical.
think that there is probably that you could justify all sorts of things under a medical basis, but I do believe that it likely stems from right-wing extremism. Yes.
You know who John Money was?
Yes.
I mean, he was a doctor. That
Yep, he's a pretty gross guy, but I don't really need John Money to provide endocrinological findings, nor do I need John Money to describe differences in hormones between men and women and how, genetically speaking, it is possible for somebody to have different genetics than what is sex typical. I do not need John Money to show the subcortical volumes of the brain to be different, or that a person's sexual differentiation changes based on the levels of hormones that they receive. I also don't need John Money for that.
So do you believe that that trans women, trans men can get pregnant and stuff like this? Is that one of your beliefs as well?
Trans men can get pregnant. Yes.
Or wait, is that a person born a man?
Trans men can get pregnant.
Is that a person born a man or born a woman?
They're born a woman,
Oh yeah.
and they transition to a man. Yes.
Yeah. Well, duh, they're a woman.
I mean, there are
They're not-
women
they're
that
not
can't have babies.
Right, but
There's also
never been
women that have
an
XY. There's also women that have XY chromosomes, and they have a vagina. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called
syndrome.
AIS, androgen insensitivity syndrome. There are women that have XY chromosomes, and it is the absence of testosterone, or specifically the portions of the body that do not accept
Right.
testosterone, that causes their body to become insensitive to the presence of androgen, which prevents testosterone from forming, which means that they will have an XY chromosomes, but then grow up female.
Right, but that's an exception, not the rule.
Well, so are trans people. Trans people are the exception, not the rule.
But that the transgenders strictly in the brain. They're not structural or functional anomalies going on.
I've already
strictly
no,
in the brain.
there are. I showed studies that showed the subcortical volumes of the brain physically
Right,
being different.
In the brain, correct.
Yeah, that's a physical difference.
But it's not based in genetics, is what I'm saying.
That would be based in genetics if it literally changes the subcortical volumes of the brain.
Let me ask you this: barring the very few genetic anomalies of Klinefelter syndrome, has there ever been a trans woman giving birth, person with XY?
No, they're born male.
Okay, I'm glad we at least agree on that.
Though it would not surprise me that they do not have a successful womb transplant. I found recently, very recent, that there has been some strides in successful womb transplants. Isn't that cool?
I think that's pretty. I mean, I guess if you're just
Allows for more birth. That's a good thing.
Full on for medical experimentation, but
By the way, the photo that I'm going to post here, I'll post it in side chat so you can see it. These are all women with androgen insensitivity syndrome. They're XY, but as you can see, they're women, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this has nothing to do with the transgender community.
Well, it kind of does, because it really explicitly shows now that there exists sexual differentiation, and sometimes that sexual differentiation can exist internally, which is based in biological determinism.
I'm sorry. Repeat that. Repeat that.
Yeah. So it does, because that this concept of sexual differentiation can be different than the typical binary. Also would allude to the fact that trans people physically have different brains, which would also have a basis in biological determinism.
Well, I mean, just because you have a different brain doesn't make you what you think you are.
There's an internal sense of your gender.
Okay, but just because you think you are the opposite doesn't really make.
I didn't say that the sex changes. The sex remains the same. It's the internal sense of your gender, which is based in biological determinism.
So, I mean, is this something do you think is like compassionate?
Is it compassionate? Yes.
To run these experiments? Oh, really?
What? No, I don't. You're acting like that. There's like a Frankenstein, and there's like an evil, yelling madman. Looking like Rick from Rick and Morty. You know,
I mean, I've seen
running
women after top surgery and
experiments.
bottom surgery. That's pretty experimental.
I've already disproved this.
No, I've seen men. There's men and women, not children, who have undergone top and bottom surgery, and it looks
Yeah,
pretty
that's their
experimental.
body.
But is that a compassionate thing to do for the
That's
medical
their
community?
body. What does that matter to you?
I'm just asking, as a general rule, is this compassionate?
I think not being hateful to people
No, of course not. That's what I'm asking. It should be
for
forgivable.
choosing their gender identity, I think that is compassionate. And I think not judging somebody based on the decision that they make to change their gender, top and bottom surgery, would also be compassionate. Yes. As to whether or not the surgery is or is not compassionate, I think that depends on the individual. I think if, for example, that you forced somebody to have a surgery that they didn't want, that would not be compassionate. But if you're having a surgery that they did want, it's not really compassionate or uncompassionate. It's just that's what they deserve, and they paid money for it.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway, do you see my study here on the side here? You can see the significant
very
effect on
small,
the
though.
cortical surface area. I'll go ahead and provide the PDF in the side chat so you can see it for yourself.
Okay. And who ran this study?
This is the neuroanatomy of the transgender identity, the meta-analytic findings from the Enigma Transgender Persons Working Group.
Based out of
What?
the state of
The
America?
Enigma Transgender Persons Working Group.
Do I have a timeline?
No.
1 second.
And this particular paper is published in PubMed. I'm giving you the without paywall version.
Okay.
Hey Daniel, I'm having trouble with Mephisto. There's a guy that's just
Really?
there's a guy that's just immune to lightning here, and I haven't even gotten to Mephisto. It's really annoying, and I really want him dead. Please help. He's just immune to lightning. I don't know what to do. Like I not this
Yeah, I
one.
mean,
This one's easy.
You just need weapons. You need to farm. You need to get better gear.
What? This one's
With
immune to
better
lightning.
gear, there's actually things you can do to mitigate his lightning resistance, which is in the form of some what's it called? The tablets. Oh my god, that you can have, right? And there's one of them that actually removes immunity.
Is there?
You
Isn't
need to
it
farm
that-
it. Yeah.
What were you saying?
Yeah, it says that it's not like these brain patterns don't suggest either, like no continuity towards, or consisting of a male profile or a female profile. It's just completely individualized.
Correct.
So
The basis of the study that I was presenting to you is the fact that it has a basis in biological determinism. You do not socially induce a change in the subcortical volumes of the brain by indoctrination. That's impossible.
But wouldn't it make sense if these patterns reflected, if a male, born male, transgender reflected a woman's profile and vice versa? Wouldn't that make more sense?
Well, it's shifted towards female, just not fully towards female, which is exactly what you would expect.
I'm reading it didn't shift either way. Conclusions indicate that transgender brains are not simply shifted toward either male or female normative patterns, but reflect an individualized neuroanatomy. So it doesn't.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So what? I mean, I don't understand the point of this.
It has a
study.
basis in
What conclusion-
biological determinism. A person being trans.
I don't think that's
So what affects the subcortical volume of a brain? How do you change the subcortical volume of a brain if it's not genetics?
social.
What are you doing? What are you receiving socially? A radiation beam to your brain?
So what is it? What do they find?
Well, it's genetic. Obviously, the size of your brain is genetic.
Okay, so then why are there people that have detransitioned?
I think that
Did they just beat
that
their
it's
genetics?
completely possible that a person feels that it is not appropriate. There could be social reasons as to why. There could be employment reasons as to why. There could be friend reasons as to why. There can be maybe they were not satisfied with the results following gender transition. That's a very complicated question. There's all sorts of different reasons that can cause someone to gender detransition. I think that is up to that individual to decide for themselves.
don't you think there could have been all of those things that you just mentioned to cause someone to transition?
I suppose so, but the fact is that these subcortical volumes do exist on people who just say that they are trans, and this is it for a majority of people, which would have a basis in biological determinism.
So if these people that had these whatever it's called, if they just lived their life as a gender that they were, what would that cause? Any harm or damage?
It depends on the individual. There's individuals where they have extreme sense of gender dysphoria, and there's others where it doesn't bother them at all. I think it is, once again, entirely dependent on the individual.
I mean, okay. I feel like this is just a very recent phenomenon.
It's not. Hijras are a lot older than 2015.
Then why is there such a prevalence of transgender people in California than there is in Kansas?
Because there's increased visibility. It's more acceptable to come out as trans now than it was, say, in 1950. But certainly there were men that like to dress up like women. Heck, I mean, I can bring you up, what is it? Do you know Simone? Have you heard of Simone?
I have not heard of Simone.
You make me feel my
But if that was the case,
You know what, huh?
No.
You know Simone?
Great singer, though. But if that was the case, wouldn't we be seeing transgender suicidal ideation, stuff along the lines?
Wait,
Obviously
did
not
I get it
same
wrong?
volume,
Hold on. I'm so sorry. I meant Sylvester. Sylvester. Here, check this out. I can't play it for very long. I'm going to get content ID'd. It's a banger. The song's a banger. Okay. All right.
How do I make your screen that I'm looking at?
I can't make it bigger. Just show the stream, and you can hear it, right? You can't. All right.
Oh, here we go.
Here we go. All right. This is a song, right?
Yep.
By Sylvester called "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real," and this in the 70s. Cross-dressing. Loved being a woman. Sylvester. Also, this song's amazing. I wish I could play the whole thing for you because it's such a fun song. But I'm gonna get content ID'd, and I can't.
That's fine.
I can't do it. Do you think I could do it fast? Would I get content ID'd if I did it fast? No, I wouldn't do the song justice. Here, I'll post it in side chat, right, so you can hear it or take a look at it on your own. Here, let me see. Where's the? Here, we'll just. All right, I gotta pause it because I can't do it more than. I'm gonna get copyrighted if I do like too much of the song. So that's why I'm pausing. Let me see. Where's the song? Where's the part where they say "You make me feel"? All right, here we go. Let's see. Is this? Right here.
I've heard this song.
All right, I'm sorry. I can't.
Well, hey,
it's a banger. It's a great. Anyway, I'm just pointing out. Right, I just show you. Listen, right?
Yep.
Trans people have existed for longer than you think. It's just they didn't call them trans people. They called them transvestites. They called them weirdos. They called it. You know what I mean? They had different words to describe the same thing. I mean, obviously we're getting more accurate in our terminology as we continue to find more on the science. And I think it's only a matter of time before people realize the existence of this and that it's far more empirical than just simply I feel that way.
Well, hey, we've been talking for quite a while. I will hopefully I can get another conversation with you soon.
All right. You make me feel mighty real.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. God bless. See you guys.
Well, that was fun.